9 square meters. Before anything else, I want you to actually picture that. 9 square meters is smaller than most American walk-in closets. It is roughly the size of a single parking spot at Costco. In some places, it is legally too small to be classified as a prison cell. And right now, in Tokyo, there are millions of people living in apartments exactly this size, cooking real food in them, having guests over, waking up every morning to clear floors, clean surfaces, and spaces that look, if you have ever seen photos, genuinely beautiful. No pile on the counter that has been sitting there since Tuesday. No mystery chair in the corner that exists solely to hold clothes that are not quite dirty and not quite clean. Just light and space and order. How? The answer is not that they have no room to accumulate clutter. That would be a convenient story, but it is not the real one. The answer is 3 habits so stripped down and specific that they work whether you are in 9 square meters or 900. Once you understand why they exist, you will not think about your home the same way again. Before we go on, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far this story travels. And if you're loving it so far, join the family by hitting subscribe, because tomorrow we've got something special lined up just for you. Rule 1. The floor is not storage. In a 9 square meter Tokyo apartment, the floor is not dead space beneath the furniture, it is the room. This comes from a much older Japanese tradition of tatami living, where you sit on the floor, eat on the floor, sleep on a futon that you roll up and store every single morning. The floor is the couch, the dining table, the bed, and the living room all at once, so it must always be clear. Think about how differently that frames things. In most American homes, the floor is a landing zone. Shoes near the door, bags in the hallway, a laundry basket in the corner, boxes that were supposed to go to the garage 3 weeks ago and have since become part of the furniture. We treat the floor as horizontal storage because we do not live on it. We live 18 inches above it, on sofas and chairs and bed frames, and that gap is where the clutter quietly takes up permanent residence. Tokyo micro-apartment dwellers cannot do this, which, as it turns out, is the advantage. Consider what happens the first time a Tokyo tenant tries to leave a bag on the floor overnight. There is nowhere for it to hide. It sits directly in the path between the kitchen and the futon, and by morning it has become an obstacle instead of a convenience. In a larger home, that same bag can disappear into a corner for a month without anyone tripping over it. Size is not just an inconvenience here. Size is the enforcement mechanism. When there is no room to ignore a problem, you stop creating problems that need to be ignored. The habit this produces is simple. Twice a day, the floor returns to 0. Before leaving in the morning, before sleeping at night. Not vacuumed, not mopped, just returned. Everything that drifted to the floor during the day goes back to where it belongs. In 9 square meters, this takes about 90 seconds. The size forces the habit, and the habit keeps the space livable. In a larger home, it takes longer. The rule stays identical. Picture a living room floor with a pair of sneakers by the couch, a charging cable snaking across the rug, a stack of mail that migrated from the counter 3 days ago, and a blanket half kicked off the sofa. None of it is dramatic on its own. Together it reads as a room that has given up. Now picture the same floor with all 4 of those things gone. Nothing else has changed. The furniture is the same, the paint is the same, the light through the window is the same. But the room reads as calm instead of tired, and that shift costs nothing beyond 90 seconds of putting things back where they belong. Try this for 7 days. Tonight, before you sleep, clear every floor surface in your home. Everything on the floor that does not belong there goes back to its place. Do the same before you leave tomorrow morning. At the end of the week, notice how the space feels. Not just cleaner, something harder to name than that. Clear floors make a room feel twice its actual size in a way that tidying shelves never quite matches, because clutter on the floor reads as disorder everywhere, while clutter on a shelf just reads as a full shelf. The floor is the whole room. When it is clear, the room is clear. Rule 2, 3 objects per surface. This is the one people argue with and then quietly start doing within 3 days. In a Tokyo micro apartment, every flat surface has a limit, 3 objects. Not because it was written down somewhere as a rule, but because tiny surfaces cannot physically hold more than 3 things without looking like the aftermath of a move. So you choose 3. And that choice forces a question that most of us never ask. Which three? The nightstand. A lamp, a book you are actually reading, a glass of water. The bathroom counter, soap dispenser, toothbrush holder, one item. The kitchen counter, the kettle, the cutting board, one appliance. Everything else lives inside the cabinet, not on top of it. Here is why this matters in a house that is not 9 square meters. Surfaces are where homes fall apart. Find a flat surface in your home right now that holds more than 6 items. A kitchen counter, most likely, a bathroom shelf, a dresser. That surface is probably responsible for some low-grade anxiety you have been carrying around long enough that you stopped noticing it. Surfaces with too many objects are impossible to wipe down in under a minute, which means you avoid cleaning them, which means they attract more objects, which means they become permanent piles you move things around on but never actually resolve. Think about your own kitchen counter for a moment. There is probably a fruit bowl, a mail pile, a phone charger, a few stray receipts, a bottle of hand soap that does not match the others, and something you meant to return to another room days ago. None of these items are individually a problem. A fruit bowl is fine. A charger is fine. The problem is the number, and the number keeps growing because a surface with 12 things on it does not look meaningfully worse with a 13th. A surface with 3 things on it looks dramatically worse the moment a 4th item lands on it, and that visible wrongness is what makes you put the 4th item away instead of leaving it there. 3 objects per surface solves this not through willpower, but through structure. When you cap a surface at 3, you can clean it in 15 seconds. Wipe, done. Nothing to move, nothing to sort through first. The surface has a job, and that job is not to hold everything you have not yet figured out where to put. There is also a decision-making cost that most people never account for. Every object sitting on a surface without a defined purpose is a small, unresolved question. Should this stay here? Does it belong somewhere else? Do I still need it at all? A cluttered counter is not just visually noisy. It is dozens of tiny unanswered questions stacked next to each other, and your mind registers that even when you are not consciously thinking about it. 3 objects per surface removes almost all of those questions in one pass, because anything that is not one of the chosen 3 has already been answered. It goes away. This week, pick one surface. The bathroom counter is a good place to start because it is contained and visible, and you look at it twice a day. Clear it completely, then choose 3 things to live on it. 3, not 4 or 5 or just these 6 small things that barely take up any room. 3, live with it for a week. Notice what happens when you look at it. That shift is why the rule works, and once you feel it on one surface, you will want it on all of them. If this is landing for you, subscribe. We do this every week. Rule 3, Morning Zero. The third rule is the most powerful and also the most counterintuitive, because it asks you to spend time on a space that already looks fine. In Tokyo micro-apartments, the morning routine ends with what you could call a return to zero. Before the door closes, the apartment is in its default condition. The futon is rolled and stored in the closet, called the oshire. The one dish from breakfast is washed and put away. The floor is clear. The surfaces are at 3 items. A window is cracked for air. The genkan, the small entryway, has shoes lined up and ready. The apartment does not look spotless. It looks reset. It looks the way it would to someone arriving there for the first time. In 9 square meters, this takes 9 minutes. It takes 9 minutes because rules 1 and 2 have already done the structural work throughout the previous day. The floor is clear because you cleared it the night before. The surfaces are at 3 items because they are always at 3 items. The dish is 1 dish because you cooked 1 meal and cleaned as you went. The morning zero is the final pass, not the heavy lifting. Now think about what it means to leave for work in a home that is already at 0, and to come back to it the same way. Most of us leave with a list of unfinished things behind us. Dishes from the night before, a laundry basket of clean clothes that never quite made it to the closet, counters that need attention when we get around to it. None of it is catastrophic, but it sits in the back of the mind as a debt you owe yourself, and at the end of a long day, seeing it when you walk in the door is dispiriting in a way that is genuinely difficult to explain to anyone who has not had the opposite experience. A home that is already reset when you come back is not the same home you left that morning. You feel it the moment you open the door. The place is on your side. There is a reason this particular habit is the hardest of the 3 to adopt and the most valuable once it sticks. Clearing a floor or capping a surface fixes something you can see right now. Morning zero fixes something you have not experienced yet. You are doing the work for a version of yourself who will not exist for another 8 or 10 hours. The one who walks in tired after a long commute and just wants the day to be over. That version of you cannot thank you in the moment. The payoff arrives later, out of sight, which is exactly why the habit is easy to skip, and exactly why skipping it quietly costs you more than any of the other rules. Building this in a larger house is not complicated. You are not cleaning every room each morning. You are resetting the rooms you actually used. The kitchen, the bathroom you used, the bedroom. 20 minutes for most households. Substantially less once the first two rules are already running. The sequence matters. Floor first, then surfaces, then dishes, then one final walkthrough. Running the same sequence in the same order every day turns it into what the Japanese call kata, a practiced form, a set of moves you repeat until they become automatic. You stop deciding how to do it and just run the form. That is when the habit stops costing you energy and disappears into the background of the day, which is exactly where good habits belong. None of these three rules requires new furniture, new storage bins, or a weekend spent hauling bags to donation centers. They require a floor kept clear twice a day, a surface capped at 3 objects, and a morning that ends the way it began. A 9 square meter apartment does these things because it has no other choice. The rest of us get to choose, and the choosing is easier than it looks once the sequence becomes a habit instead of a decision. Why all these three rules only work because of the order they create together. The floor rule keeps things from drifting. The surface rule keeps things from accumulating. The morning zero keeps either of the first two from slipping long enough to become a real problem. Take one away, and the others have gaps. Keep all three, and the gaps close. A 9 square meter Tokyo apartment enforces all three by necessity. You sleep on the floor, so the floor must be clear. Your surfaces are physically small, so they cannot hold more than 3 things. Your entire home is one room, so 9 minutes every morning is not optional. It is the only thing standing between you and living in a pile. Your home does not enforce any of this. Neither does mine. Which is the actual reason most homes never quite reach the state their owners picture. Not because of the wrong bins or the wrong organizers or the wrong method, but because without the forcing function of a tiny space, the habits drift until you are standing in chaos again, confused about how it happened. Choose the habits before the space has to choose them for you. That, in the end, is what a 9 square meter apartment in Tokyo teaches. Not that small is better. That constraints clarify what matters. And what matters, it turns out, takes up a lot less space than most of us have given it. 3 actions this week tonight. Before you sleep, clear every floor in your home. See what the morning feels like. Tomorrow, pick one surface and put exactly 3 objects on it. One surface, 3 objects. That is the whole assignment. The day after that, write down the 6 or 7 steps your morning zero will include, in order, and time yourself running it. You will be surprised how short it actually is. 3 small actions, 1 from each rule. The 9 square meter apartment is not the goal. The habits it produces are available to anyone. Subscribe if this helped you. Share it with someone who you know has been staring at their kitchen counter too long. And leave a comment telling me which rule you are starting with. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video.